Mental health can be a difficult topic to talk about, but a Northland agency is hoping to make it easier. Northern News Now's Taryn Simmons joins us live in studio with how proper training is leading to more lives saved. Taryn.
Kendall, St. Louis County Public Health is offering free Safe Talk trainings today and tomorrow. They're designed to teach people how to reach out to someone struggling with suicidal thoughts. Safe Talk is an acronym. SAFE stands for Suicide Alertness for Everyone, and TALK follows the steps a person can take to speak to someone who is having suicidal thoughts. Today's training took place at the St. Louis County Government Services Center in Duluth. Attendees learned ways to have the confidence to talk about suicide and ability to intervene with someone at risk. Josh Gorham, program coordinator of St. Louis County, wants people in the community to open up about the taboo topic.
It's really important that we have people equipped and ready to talk about suicide in our community. The more people who are trained and ready, the larger safety net we have in our community. And this is an issue that can affect anyone, anytime. And so being suicide alert is really for everyone.
There's one more training for Safe Talk tomorrow morning at the St. Louis County Government Services Center in Virginia. The session is free to everyone to attend.
Thank you, Taryn. Advanced registration is required for tomorrow's session. And we have more information about the program and resources out there to help at northernnewsnow.com.